we are always judging ourselves as human beings. There's something I call the paradox of judgment. And this is how it looks. We are afraid to be judged, and yet we are constantly judging ourselves. You are hard-pressed to find a more harsh critic than yourself. And yet, we are still afraid of being judged by others. So why is that? There are two things. One, I think we're not seeing the paradox. We're not seeing that what we're afraid of is actually not others but ourselves. We're afraid that what others are going to share is going to correspond with what we see about ourselves and the judgments that we make about ourselves. So then it will affirm what we already know to be true about us. Right? So once you start to see this as a paradox, and that you've always lived with judgment from as long as you've known what judgment is, then you can start to allow that paradox to lose its grip. Because that's the beauty of a paradox. Once you see it, you can remove the impact that it has upon you. Okay. So we are always judging ourselves, and yet we are often afraid of what people will say if we put ourselves out there, if we tell this person that we like them, if we ask for the raise that we really think that we want and should get. We're worried about how others will respond. If they say, no, I don't want to be with you, no, you're not worthy of this raise, then it is reaffirming our deepest worries and judgments about ourselves. And it then makes us want to play small and go, see, I told you that wasn't possible for you. No. None of that communication means any of those things. We just add that to our interpretation of events. If you ask your boss for a raise and you feel like you're worth a raise and they say no, all it means is you asked your boss for a raise and they said no. What we often add there is, I shouldn't have done that. That was a really stupid thing to do. Why did I even think it was possible for someone like me to get a raise? You know, I'll never do that again. That was so embarrassing. That's the kind of dialogue which can tend to go through our minds. But it's a paradox, right? It's a paradox, and we've added interpretation to something which has no reality beyond our interpretation. And when we see that, then we can see that there's actually no relationship between that event and, in the future, asking for a raise. Consider that that situation was just not one where it was possible for your boss to give you a raise. If you asked your boss for a raise right now, the likelihood is that's going to be a pretty tricky thing, because most businesses are either folding, furloughing staff, or just trying to survive. So if you were the person who had, the chutzpah, maybe, to go and say, I want a raise, they may think, okay, that's a brave person, and it's not possible right now. Doesn't mean it's not possible in the future, it just means it's not possible right now from their point of view. And it doesn't mean anything about you. And I want to add, it may be possible to get a raise at this time if in the right kind of situation. But what's important to see here is how, when we take on the no as something about us, then it lives for us as if we've done something wrong, as if we were stupid or we should never have made the request in the first place. And we don't tend to want to put ourselves out there in that way again in the future.